So today is the review for the Honors Higher Algebra test, and I asked the kids, what's wrong with this formula? And they knew that there was something wrong. It's missing its domain. N is greater or equal to, say it if you know it. 2 is correct. It's always 1 bigger than whatever that is. All right, that's missing a domain. Now that I got that, is this arithmetic or geometric? Arithmetic because it's adding. If I asked you the first 3 terms, you would probably not even need to use a calculator as long as you can add 7 in your head. Tell me the first 3 terms. The reason I'm doing this is some kids think that u sub 0 is the first term. It is not. The first term is whatever they give you. Even if they gave you u sub 0, whatever they gave you, that's the first term. So this is 25. And the next one, you just add 7, and so you're at 32. Add 7 more, you got 39. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Okay. Now, here's where they get complicated. U0 equals 12. UN minus 1, 1 minus 0.03. Now, I did that the nice way. If I had just put a decimal there, kids are prone to make a mistake. But if I write it this way, I know I could have put 0.97 there, but I wrote it the nice way because I'm going to ask you a few questions. What's the common ratio? Or sometimes they just referred to it as the ratio. What is it decay or growth? Is it increasing or decreasing? What is the percent growth? It's either decay or growth, so I better write the right one. By now, did you guys already answer that? Is it decay or is it growth? Decay. It's decay. What's the percent decay? 97. And what's missing from this formula? I'm going to pause for a second while you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers. Pausing. Okay, you guys said already that it was decay, and you were right. And somebody asked, isn't that always the same? They do ask you separately, was it increasing or decreasing? So decay goes with what? Decreasing. And yes, those do go together. But they are separate questions. All right, then the percent decay, and that is 3%, not 0.03. 0.03 is a decimal, not a percent. 3 is a percent. So if you said 0.03, I get it, but I'd mark it wrong because it's not a percent. Do you get that that might mean 7%, but it isn't until you write it as 7%. They're different things. Got to know how far to move the decimal, which is twice. All right, and then the thing that was missing was n is greater or equal to 1. But last time it was 2. Well, last time we had a different starting number. Okay, and then the common ratio, I think that's the hardest question. The common ratio is the thing that you multiply by every time. And it's that, which is, I would have accepted 1 minus 0.03 because I like when kids write it in that format. But I would have also accepted 0.97. Either one of those is the common ratio. All right, here's one that stumps a lot of people. 1.6, 1.73, and I'm telling you they didn't add. This one is a geometric. If that's true, then what's the common ratio? And what's the equation for this? It's a recursive equation. If this is geometric, which I'm telling you it is, you should be able to figure out the common ratio and then the recursive equation for it. You do have a choice on this one, you have a choice whether you start with u sub 0, u sub 1, or u sub 2006. You can start with anything you want. But when given a choice, I would always pick u sub 1. I'm going to pause for a second and try to answer that question. So I hope you knew that you take this one divided by that one. So I am going to go 1.73 divided by 1.6, and it gives me 1.08125. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You can't just round that to whatever you want. I didn't say to round it. So if I don't say what to round to, then you better write the whole thing out. Okay? Now, I know on the test it might say to round, but I didn't. So be careful with that. All right, recursive equation, u sub, I said you could pick, but I recommend u sub 1. But that doesn't mean you can't pick u sub 0. And u sub 1 is 1.6. And u sub 0 could have been 1.6. You start, you're with any number here that you want. I recommend 1. Always has to be that. And then if you're multiplying by something, you put it there. 1.08125. And how many of you remembered n greater than or equal to 2, a domain? Raise your hand if you remember the domain. That's only like 6 kids. If you forget that domain, it's going to cost you on the test. All right. So what else do you have to know for this test? Quite a few things. Here's some weird ones that freak people out. U255 equals 6. U sub n equals u sub n minus 1 times 0.75. What's the first 3 terms? Here you can round to 1 decimal place. I'm okay with rounding to 1 decimal place. That means like 5.2 or something like that. 1 decimal place rounding is okay. And then I'm going to ask you the common ratio and the decay rate. If you guys can't read it from the back, I'll write it in black. Should be easier to read. U sub 255 is equal to 6. U sub n minus 1. There's a 0.75 right there. And the rest of it's just the domain. What's the first 3 terms? So there's my next question. $60,000 car bought in 2022. That's why this is a 22. It's dropping 15% per year. And when will it fall below 25,000 in value? The table will be the best way to go here. All right, I'm going to pause for a sec. Will you put that in the calculator? If you get stuck with the putting it in the calculator part, talk to the kid next to you. Okay, bottom line, there's an answer, and it's a year. Was it like 2028? I mean, what was it? Talk to the kid next to you. Talk to the kid next to you. See if you got the same thing. Okay, so here's your little formula. UN minus 1, 0.85, or 1 minus 0.15. And then we don't have to have the domain because we're just putting it in the calculator. So n min, that means what's the smallest n we have, which is 22. If you didn't fix that on your calculator, you're going to get it wrong. U parentheses n minus 1. And then times by 0.85. Or I like 1 minus 0.15. And then un min, that is that. So it's really saying what is u sub 22? And I told you it was 60. There we go. If you put that in your calculator right, I believe the answer was 2028. Raise your hand if you had 28. Okay, good. All right. If you have questions about that kind of thing, you should ask. So, I think that I have covered everything that you would need to know. There is going to be a hard question on your test. Of course, you're in honors. It's not supposed to just be all easy. How would you know to be ready for that? All you can do is that review problem that you've got, that review set that's basically like a practice test. That's your homework. Your homework for tonight, it's like a practice test. Do it, check it, and in this case, you might want to keep track of how many times you got things wrong. Like if you look at the key and you're like, oh crap, I did it wrong. If you get like 6 wrong, that's a sign you better study some more. Because if you keep referring to the key and you're right, cool, and you don't need to study more. You keep referring to the key and the key's screwed up, or no, you're screwed up. You better know that. Okay, yes.
So the whole last page of the key is like just different problems.
Yeah, the key's inactive. It's not the same.
It's the wrong key.
It's just not the same word.
The beginning's the same and it's right, but the end, it doesn't have like the.
Okay, thank you. I will fix the key that is posted. I apologize for that. Hold on just a sec. I think that's, I'm going to pause for a second. So I posted a whole new worksheet and a whole new key, so everybody in the second hour shouldn't have that problem.